Hey now, Plainville, Massachusetts. That's where I am. The town where a girl encouraged her teenage boyfriend to kill himself. Special on HBO that we've been watching. But I want to talk about Tyson. How about Mike Tyson smacking that guy around on a plane? It's a big month for people getting slapped around. Will Smith did it. Tyson did it. In this case, totally justified. I don't know if you watched the video that you can see online, but you should, because this guy, and it doesn't even show it all. It doesn't show that first the guy pestered Tyson for a selfie. Tyson gave it to him. And then the guy continued to harass him, threw a water bottle at him, and then Tyson punched him in the head. There's a fucking breaking point. This is a guy who is a known rageaholic. He is a killer. And you want to fuck with him? That's what you get. That's different than Chris Rock making a joke about Jada Pinkett's hair. Which, by the way, what's wrong with this haircut? I'm in solidarity with Jada on the haircut. Anyway, that just goes to show you, I'm so glad that I am not famous. I have just the right comfortable level of low notoriety where it's just, you know, I'm friends with famous people. I don't even like hanging out with them in public. I don't like to go to lunch with Zach Galifianakis or Louis C.K. I want to sit alone with them somewhere and talk. You go out in public with them and you get accosted. People feel like they have some right to demand things from you. Because why? Because you entertain them? Because you sacrifice so many things in your life so that you could be an entertainer and provide laughter and connection to multitudes of people. That means that they're also entitled to a private audience with you whenever they feel like it. No. I like my level. Here's my level of fame. Last night, I did a show at a casino in Massachusetts. Drew about 400 people, very comfortable size. After the show, I did a meet and greet where I talked to almost every one of them. Many of them are listeners of the podcast. People brought me gifts. Somebody bought me, a couple people gave me pot, which I don't consume. I don't take pot from people. But somebody brought me honey sesame cashews from Trader Joe's, which I was complaining I'm in love with and addicted to and can't find anymore. Lady bought me 2 bags. Another guy had my book, wanted me to sign it. Another guy had a photo that he'd printed that was one of the logos that we used on Sunday papers, and he had me sign it. It was perfect. It was warm. It was loving. It was a communion. It was so nice. And then I took the other acts out to a bar. Will Noonan, by the way, if you live in the Boston area, is a great fucking comic. Worth seeing. A headliner in his own right. He was kind enough to come down and feature on the show. And then another kid who was very funny, Andrew Della Volpe, was very funny. But, Boston's still got a great comedy scene. It's thriving. There's tons of rooms. There's still the guys that have been doing it since I started here that are the Steve Sweeney's and the Don Gavin's down in Florida now, but like Kenny Rogerson and Mike Donovan and Mike McDonald. I got to catch up with these guys about where those guys are up to. Frank Santarelli. But then there's a whole new breed of comics that are really strong. So if you live in the Boston comedy scene, support live comedy. Come out and see these guys. We went to Bar Louie afterwards, hung out. Somebody recognized me, sent over drinks. It was but he didn't accost us. No, there wasn't like a fucking demand of anything. I don't know why anybody wants to be famous anymore. And there's so many people that are trying so hard on social media to get famous. I don't know what the payoff is. You want to be right where I am. I crawled my way to the middle. I'm staying right there. That's the sweet spot. No matter what your job is. Do you want to be the first one at work in the morning? Do you want to be the boss? You want to be the last one to leave and the one that has to put out fires? No. Be the guy that gets in a little late. Maybe he's high on Friday. Whatever. He worked hard Monday to Thursday. That's fine. Is he a little handsy? Is he the guy that goes, I'm a hugger? What can I say? I'm a hugger. That guy's fine. He's over 50. He'll age out, and the new generation won't do that. You know? So anyway, I'm still I'm in Plainville now. They're probably going to knock on the door any second and tell me I got to get out of my hotel room. It's 11:55 a.m. on Sunday, the 24th of April. And I'm supposed to be checked out in 5 minutes. And then they're going to take me to Boston, where I'm checking into another hotel and going to my dear friend, Mary Fitzgerald. She's part of the Irish Mafia, my group of Irish friends. She's from Dorchester. Mary is a very successful writer in L.A. She's been writing on shows for 25 years. And now she's back for her dad's memorial. He died during the pandemic, and they hadn't had a chance to have a memorial. So I'm not psyched that he died, but look, I think the guy was 88. He lived a full life. That's the cutoff, right? Is that the cutoff for full life? 88? 87's a tragedy. 88 is like, hey, that's full. That's the under-over. I think 83 would be my number. Maybe 84 tops. But anyway, this memorial is going to be great because her family are a bunch of characters. I'm good friends with her sister Diane as well. Kathleen, she's got, I think she's one of six or seven, maybe seven. And they're all characters. Her brothers were all like, they grew up in a tough part of Dorchester, and the brothers were all like Golden Gloves boxing champs, and they're just characters. And their father was a bookie. He worked for Whitey Bulger in Boston, and I think he was in jail part of Mary's childhood, and real tough guy. And he died, and I think there's going to be a collection of real like Southie characters. And it's just a very loving family. They're really good people. Just they can all tell a story and bust balls, good laughers. It's going to be a great day. I know that's weird to say, but when you're Irish, that's what memorials are. They're great fucking days. They're a celebration of life. So I'll do that, spend the night, and then fly back to LA tomorrow. And then I'm off for Denver to the Comedy Works. On Thursday through Saturday, if you're around. That's what are those dates? The 28th through the 30th. I'll be at the Denver Comedy Works. And then other dates I got coming up. Tacoma Comedy Club, May 19th through the 21st. And then I will be in Irvine at the Improv, May 27th through the 29th. Bakersfield, California at the Well, June 11th. All tickets at Fitzdog.com. If you're in the book club, we got another meeting Tuesday, the 26th at 6 p.m. Pacific time. The email will go out if you're in the group. If you're not, I'm sorry. I'm sorry you didn't get in. There will be other book clubs. This is a heavy one. We're doing Ant Kind by Charlie Kaufman, and it's a fucking trip. I actually smoked pot and read about 100 pages the other night. It was like, it's all over the place, but it's beautifully written and it's funny. Guy's a fucking genius. So we'll do that. God, I farted before the podcast and it still smells, but it smells good. I'm not gonna deny it. I enjoy the smell of my own farts. I will. If I'm alone in a room, I will cup it, draw it to me, and inhale. All right? Does that make me a freak? Do you guys do that? I'm curious. Does anybody else enjoy their own farts? Fucking love it. It feels like it's me. It feels like it's my essence. What else is going on? We had 420 this past... Big last week. 420, pot day. We had 422 was Earth Day. 418 was Easter. 417 was Passover. It was chock full of events, which was fun because I was doing a lot of stand-up, and I've got my jokes I dust off every year for each holiday. Anyway, whatever. Let's get into it. Don't forget, the premium membership is available at Fitzdog.com. You can get like 950 back episodes. Is that crazy? And also the Grapefruit Simmons t-shirts are there. Like and subscribe, please, on iTunes. That always helps out. And follow me at Greg Fitz Show on Twitter. I think it's just Greg Fitzsimmons on Instagram. Couple of overheards. Zach in San Diego said, Easter morning, watching my kids at a playground, a woman greeted a blind lady and her companion, quote, hello, long time no see. I don't know how long it's been since she's seen, but that's a funny thing to say to a blind person. It's like a deaf person talking to you going, I hear you. I hear you. A guy named Nope said, hey, this is Cody from Denver. Hey, Cody. Hope to see you this weekend. While standing in line for coffee, I heard two bros talking to each other when one says, quote, man, don't ever give up faux show pussy for some IDK pussy and end up with no pussy. I've definitely heard worse advice. Yep. That is true. I was a faux show pussy guy when I was in college. I was a guy who was like, look, I don't have tremendous self-esteem. If you're showing interest in me and you feel attracted to me, I reciprocate. If you have a good personality and you can hang at the bar for a few beers, you're in. You're in. I don't need some IDK pussy. I don't need some like, oh, if I get her, I'll feel better about myself. I don't need to elevate myself. I need some faux show pussy. Because if you end up with no pussy, oh, that's a sad night. Now you're smoking a bong at 3 a.m. with Dudley, talking about a hockey game that you played in intramurals last week. No, give me the faux show. Brian Witchert overheard in downtown Seattle while walking to a Mariners game. Girl wearing a Mariners jersey. Babe. Guy wearing a Mariners jersey. You need to shut the fuck up. That is a perfect overheard. Why? Because it is act 2 of a 3-act play. We don't know what happened just before that, and we don't know what's going to happen next. You have brought us right into the center of the story, the crux, the denouement, as the French would say. And I got to think he's got the power here because she's pleading and he's emphatic. It's not major because they're still walking to the game together. It's not like she cheated on him. But it has something to do with her mother, I think, like in a Bruce Springsteen song. He had to drive her mother to the welfare office. And he's not going to do it no more. All right, let's get to it. This gentleman on the podcast today is a very dear friend, a guy who I worked with. I was a writer on Crashing on HBO. He was the star of that, but I knew him for years doing stand-up before that, and continues to be a dear friend, and his lovely wife. He is from Boston, where I am right now. Started out doing the Christian comedy circuit. He was almost a youth minister. He wrote cartoons for The New Yorker. He had a show on TBS, his own talk show for a while. And he now is starring in a show called How We Roll on CBS, like a major, big money network sitcom. So we're all happy for him. He's got his own podcast called You Made It Weird with Pete Holmes. And here's my chat with the lovely Pete Holmes. Pete Holmes, welcome to the show.
Well, you're telling me why you're giddy.
I'm a little giddy because there was a girl in high school that I had a big crush on. Now, this is not the girl in 8th grade that I had a crush on. This is the girl in high school. And I'm about to go to New Orleans and do a show, and she reached out to me and was texting me and said that I was cute in high school.
Oh?
Can you imagine?
The girl you had a crush on had a crush on you in high school.
No, I think it's far from she had a crush on me. I think she was being kind and said it.
Fitzdog, you're one of the last remaining, you, me, Kumail, HMCs, happily married comedians.
I could not be a more happily married comedian. This is about validation of having felt like a complete fucking zero in high school.
I'm going to tell you something, Fitzies. You're right in my wheelhouse right now, because I have a bit. It's my favorite new bit about how when I look back on my life, I realize it was the last thing on my mind that any girl might have liked me.
Yes.
You're an Ed Harris looking motherfucker. You're You're a handsome guy. You're not soft. I'm soft. You know, I got boob shadow. I'm doughy. I'm wet. Like I'm a wet guy. Like I can put out a candle like Nosferatu. Like I'm wet. I'm soft and wet. And I have moles on my face. Like nobody talks about that as a grown up, but as a kid, like if you have moles on your face, it's like, what the fuck is wrong with your face? Like all the time. Like I remember being in the Burlington Mall, fucking kid, and we were playing the Street Fighter 2 at Electronics Boutique because they had a Super Nintendo that you could play for free.
Dude, you got another quarter? You got another quarter?
No, you don't need a quarter to play a fucking Street Fighter on Super Nintendo, kid.
Okay,
so I'm waiting to play it, and this kid this is what it was like being probably junior high. This kid says to me, why don't you run down to see? This is the first thing this motherfucker's ever said to me. He turns to me and says, why don't you run down to CVS and get some Clearasil for those things on your face? That's like you and I forget what it's like being a kid. And that's just one of the things that happens is like some kid just might like assault you verbally, or just say some shit verbally. And I didn't know what to say. I said to my brother...
And at that age, as an adult, you can suffer the slings and arrows. At that age, you are so vulnerable. That shit hurts so much.
As a grown-up, I would say, what the fuck's wrong with you?
Yeah.
Like, what's going on? Like, I would reason with them, or at least be like, that's not cool. Like, because there's a level of intellect you could demonstrate hurt in a way that they would be like, maybe I wasn't cool or whatever. But kids aren't that subtle. But I told my brother about it afterwards, and he was like, well, what did the kid look like? He's like trying to train me in how to like stick up for myself. And I was like, well, he's kind of fat. And he was like, well, why didn't you say, while I'm down there, I'll pick up some Slim Fast for your fat ass, right? And I was like... That was actually kind of sweet of my brother. I remember it fondly. But I was like, dude, I'm fat too. Like if I said that, you know what I mean? Like if you're trying to fight back verbally, which by the way, was never my style. You can't pick something you also are. You know what I mean? Because then he'd be like, yeah, why don't you pick up 2 6-packs of Slim Fast and we can both see if we can hit our target weight.
But that's the thing I don't get about you. You grow up in Massachusetts, the land of vitriolic, hard-edged sarcasm, and then somehow you don't absorb any of that psyche, and you come out soft, like you said, soft, like Play-Doh.
Yeah, but Fitzies, I say this because I love you, and because when you did my podcast, you opened up so much about your anger. Like the past couple days, I've just noticed, I've just been pinched. A lot of things out of my control. We're really hoping for a second season of the show of How We Roll. Please watch it Thursday nights 9:30. That's obviously the thing I'd love to promote. But like that tension manifests in other ways. I'm not mad at anybody on that front. I'm not mad at anybody, but it comes out as this like aggro Holmesy side that maybe you don't know. And the way that it'll show up is like you in traffic, or I'll be in line at a sandwich shop or something, and I'll catch myself thinking like, fuck this guy, like some guy in front of me, and I'm just like, fuck this guy. Like I don't like the back of your head. I don't like the relaxed stance. I was just at the doctor today, and this woman in front of me had this bow-legged, like her legs sort of bowed backwards. Mm-hmm. I was like, fuck this minotaur. What are you, guarding a labyrinth? Like I just hated her. But I didn't really hate her. Like Val always like has this ever happened to you? Sometimes I'll go like, look at this fucking idiot with his dumb sweater. And then the guy turns around and is like, Pete Holmes, I love you. And I instantly love him. And I love his sweater. You know what I mean? Yeah. It's like one of the things I love about comedy is like, it actually gets me. I know that's a stupid reason, but if somebody's like into comedy, like I kind of love them immediately. But anyway, so I can be a little Boston nasty.
No, I've seen it. Yeah, I've seen it. It's there.
It's there. It comes out. But my father was so comfortable showing his whatever Boston side that I was just like, I'm going to sweep mine so far under the rug. But sometimes I get a bumpy rug. Yeah. Anyway, what I wanted to say back to your 8th grade bit, your crush thing, was because I was a wet boy. I never thought girls had crushes on me, but Fitz, I look back and I'm like, yes, they did. Like I never thought that they were human beings. I never considered that I thought they were unicorns. They were Pegasi, you know, that never would look my way. But like, there were a couple things. One, I remember a girl gave me a sip of her grape soda, Welch's grape soda. And I'm like, she doesn't just want me to try her soda. That's like a low grade flirt. Yeah. It's like a little kiss. It's like I kissed the soda, you kissed the soda, we kind of kissed. Sure. But like, I was completely oblivious. Yeah. And then even more obvious, at summer camp, this girl asked me to dance to Heavy D's Now That We Found Love. It was a fast dance, and it's a long song. And after the dance, I just walked away. I was like, well, that was, I guess she just loves to dance. Yeah. Pete, that girl might have been interested in you. It just never, I'm not being false modest. It never occurred to me.
When your self-esteem is low, it's very easy to romanticize the other person's life. I would look at girls in high school, and there was a girl named Ashley Briggs. And
I know Ashley.
She was well-heeled. You do not know Ashley.
Well-heeled? What does that mean?
She like Greenwich, Connecticut, blonde hair, blue-eyed, like the Argyle sweater knotted across the shoulders and the penny loafers. And she came from generations of Ashley Briggs. And you look at that girl, and I'm a 125-pound acne, pale, freckles, and I can't imagine that she could ever look at me. And then you find out later, like, she had a horrible home life. She had back hair. You know, maybe she had a mustache she waxed every Wednesday. You have no fucking idea.
What if you're soft? Okay, so like, I'm not trying to make fun, but by today's standards, I was not fat. By 1989 standards, I was fat.
Yeah.
And honestly, I'm not just saying this. That has a lot to do with the fucking food, and let's not even get into it. Like, food is so fucked. But anyway, when I was a kid, I was the fattest kid, heaviest kid in my class, and that makes you the fat kid. You know what I'm saying? So you're like, oh man, I'm only 120 pounds and I had freckles. If you're the soft boy, I'm looking at you and how fucking fast you are and swift and unwinded. And like fearlessly topless. I still don't understand like why skinny guys are like embarrassed about being skinny. Like, you have abs and ribs and your chest is flat. I'm still self-conscious. I Googled I don't even know what it's called, that machine at the gym.
Bowflex?
No, like flies. I think it's called flies.
Okay. Yeah.
And I was like, I recently Googled home fly machine. Like, I'm going to do it. Because I'm still...
Yeah, but
somebody today just said your shit is your shit.
I fucking loved the kids that were fat. I liked how the fat spilled over the sides of their sneakers. You know how when it's wider than the sole? I thought that was the most wonderful thing. I wanted that so bad.
You're kidding.
I swear to God.
Why? Because you look like a man? Like you look like a grown-up?
Look like a man. It looked like a guy who had some girth. I'm
going to give you some... like I could work like a coffee cart in like Calcutta or something. I'll give you another, like the guy that said, why don't you go get some Clearasil? I remember Joey. His name was Joey. Church friend, Fitz. You think a church friend would be safe?
No.
We're bound by a covenant of love and forgiveness. Yeah. Take this motherfucker Joey to the public pool, Lexington, Massachusetts. My pool. He wasn't from Lexington. He's from fucking Everett,
Concord,
some shit.
Probably Concord, yeah.
Well, no, Concord's even nicer. I remember feeling like I was like, I'm going to show you how Lexington does it, and we're going to go to our nice pool. And, we take our shirts off, and the dude just stares at me because I look like a little man. I was at an open mic, Fitzy. I've quoted this so many times. Yeah. You ever hear a joke at an open mic and 20 years later you're still thinking about it? This person there's no chance he's still doing comedy. I want this joke so badly. Here's the joke. He goes, you ever see a kid so fat he looks like he has a job? That's the funniest joke there's ever been. And I was that kid. I looked like I went over to the 99 steakhouse and had some cheese and crackers and the prime rib. Because I looked like I was eating away stress, which I was, by the way. Right, I was eating away stress. But he poked me. We were in line for the high dive, and he poked me like the Pillsbury Doughboy and he said, this is verbatim, it's a quote. He goes, you're way fatter than you look with a shirt on. And I was just like, I'm still mad about it, man. I'm still upset. So skinny, I don't care. Freckles, get the fuck out of here with freckles. I got moles and soft.
We went to the town pool one day, and it was like I don't know why in 8th grade they let us all go to the pool one day. It was like pool day. And there was a place called the Crest Town Pool. And we all showed up. And of course, 9 out of 10 kids didn't sleep the night before because they didn't want to show their bodies. In 8th grade, it was just at the point where half the kids have hit puberty and half haven't. And
by the way, that's good, because what we're talking about is I never even considered that other kids were uncomfortable. Keep going. You're right, though. Of course,
so
everyone
we're all uncomfortable, but nobody thinks the other person's uncomfortable. We're all in our own little cocoons thinking that everybody else is what we see of them. Like, I see the other kids as, look at the fat feet, look at the dark brown skin.
Look at those beautiful fat feet. You're so funny.
And
look
so
at those,
we go,
it's spilling over.
And I go to the changing room, and I put on my shorts, and I come out, and this girl that I liked, Lisa Cosmos, who was Greek and had nice fat feet, and she looks at me and she goes, those are your legs? Because I always I was like Kurt Cobain. I used to wear thermal underwear underneath my jeans to make my legs look thicker. I wore layers.
I can't. Those are your legs?
Spring. Those are your legs.
You know what, man? You're helping me realize that I still don't think that other people were uncomfortable. Even your freckles. I think I idealize everybody. If you were in my class, I would be like, look at that Irish beauty with his sun. I would have looked at you like your mother looked at you. Look at his sun-kissed face and those thin legs. And of course, everybody was just having a panic attack.
Yeah.
A full-on panic attack. But anyway, the bit continues that, like, I was talking to somebody about how these girls had crushes on me when I was like 11, 12, 13. And he said, this is true. He goes, imagine if you knew then what you know now. And I was like, finish that sentence. Yeah. I would have fucked a bunch of kids? Is that what you're saying? Like, here's my point. I was never into kids, Fitz. Never. Yeah. Even when I was a kid, I had crushes on my teachers. Women with shapes and shadows. Never children. I knew people growing up that lost their virginity when they were like 11, 12 to other 11, 12-year-olds, and now they're grown. And I'm like, dude, it's illegal for you to remember that. It's gross.
Yeah, right.
Like, fucking stop it.
Well, that is an
it.
ethical question, because there was a girl in high school. I'm not going to say her name because I said it once before on my podcast, and her husband fucking DM'd me to stop talking about his wife. But I would masturbate thinking about this girl, and then once in a while, I would go back. She was in my Rolodex, and I would go back and think about her, and I thought I'm allowed to because I started when I was underage, so I'm grandfathered in.
Oh my Jesus, Greg! You're who I'm making fun of in my bit.
Yep.
but
I'm grandfathered in.
That's a funny premise. I never, even when I was a kid, junior high, when you're starting to do that, masturbate, it was always the teacher. This is not hindsight trying to look, I like how honest you are. I just was never, that's why like prom, even high school, it still seemed like kids to me, and they were like, you're gonna get laid. It's prom, off like a prom dress, and I was like, no.
Yeah.
I still watch movies, and they're like going on dates and driving cars. I'm like, I didn't have a car. I didn't have any money. I wasn't going on dates. I went to the prom. We went to fucking Ern's house. We watched some movies. We fell asleep. That I don't understand. I still don't understand. And I'll tell you right now, I don't regret it. I'm so glad I didn't begin in high school or peak in high school. It still seems weird to me.
Yeah, I might have peaked a little bit in high school, like in terms of, I think that the happiest and probably angriest and saddest, but emotionally I was so alive in like 8th, 9th, 10th grade. I started drinking at a very young age. I had sex at a young age. I was, sneaking out, staying out all night. Getting arrested. Like, we were crazy. And how did
you sneak out? You go out the window, like in the Boy Meets World? You do go out the window.
I lived on the second floor, and one night I came home drunk, and my father threw a beating on me, because there's nothing an alcoholic likes more than beating his drunken child. And so I went up to my room and I jumped out the window, and then I got on the roof and I was about to jump into the backyard, and all of a sudden I hear, "Greg, get off the roof. You're drunk." And so I run over the top of the roof to the front yard, and I jump into the front yard, and I fucking dropped and rolled, and then I just darted off into the woods, and I went off and I ran away for like 3 days. And and the whole time I'm staying at my friend Brian Van Horn's house, and I'm just getting baked and skipping school. And the whole time I'm thinking, my parents are probably so worried right now. They have no idea where I am. Meanwhile, of course, Brian's mother called my parents and said, "Don't worry, Greg is safe. He's here." And my parents said, "All right, we're going to just let him cool down for as long as he needs." And so then I came home, and I can remember coming home and going into the backyard. It was nighttime, and my mom was sitting in the living room. We had a big picture window, and she was reading a novel, and she was alone on the couch. And I remember looking in the window at this house that looked so perfect and so idyllic, and this nice suburban world, and just thinking, like, I'm a million miles away from there, and I'm going back in there now to become a part of that world. And I felt alienated, and I felt scared and sad, and I went in, and they just accepted me back. It was fine, and we never talked about it.
That's the Boston way.
Yeah, right.
That's why, and I'm not even trying to bring this up. I don't like commenting on it. Nobody wants me to comment on it. But that's what I found most disturbing about the Will Smith, Chris Rock thing. What was obviously the slap. You texted me that night. But the thing that really kind of cooled me, made me cold.
You didn't know about it. You're so out of the loop. I texted you about it happening, and it was 3 hours later, and you had no idea.
Yeah, and that's the bliss that I live in. I mean, it's a beautiful thing. It's a beautiful thing.
Yeah.
Other people were texting me bits, and I didn't know what they were talking about, and it was great. But anyway, it was when Will went up afterwards and kind of acted like it didn't happen. That to me was the sort of the trauma adjacent element of it. You know what I'm saying? Like, there's things that happen in families, and the real hurt often is amplified by the refusal to acknowledge it. So I'm wondering if you would have preferred as a young man that when you came in, they'd be like, like on Blossom or some shit, they'd talk to you and be like, "Hey, Greg, I know that you've been needing to," like you say, cool down. Maybe they just didn't want you around for a little bit. We don't know, because you're left to conjecture. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, right. And you fill in the worst scenario. You fill in I started to think they didn't care. Like, I wanted them to be looking for me. And,
of course.
Yeah.
You were the girlfriend getting out of the car, that you wanted them pulling alongside going, baby, get in the car, get in the car. And you got out of the car and they just went home. And you're just walking out. Now you're just walking on 128.
I was acting Italian and they were acting Irish.
That is really funny. You should write that down. That's really, really funny. You see, you and I worked together on a bunch of stuff, but on Crashing, you were writing. And I think it's so literally incredible that there you were getting baked. Basically what I'm saying is all these things that I would have thought you can't do, even as a comedian, getting drunk, getting baked, getting in trouble, not studying, not going to class. And then you got a job and have had many, many jobs in show business where it pays great. You get insurance, all these things. It's incredible. Like, do you stop? Like, I sort of towed the line. I walked the line. You know what I mean? I focused up. I didn't smoke pot until I was like 28. And even then I did it pretty responsibly. But my brain was formed. You were fucking around in the kitchen while the goose was still cooking. And I still gave you thousands of dollars a week to be like, I don't know, maybe Pete, I gave it, HBO gave it to you. But maybe Pete falls down the stairs, and like, how hard did you win? You won so hard.
Yeah, I think it makes me, as a parent, I think it makes me a better parent to think it's not that important. Grades are not that important. Getting in trouble is not that important. That this is a phase of their life, and in a way, I don't want to stymie it. And we always kept our kids on kind of a loose leash. We let them stay out a little bit. We let them, and I think it's paid off. They're mature kids now. And they were never like A students. They, they were mediocre students, but.
No, I know. I've met them. They're very dim. There's just not a lot of life coming from those kids. I'm just kidding. I've never met your kids. Keep going.
Yeah. So they, but I really think that you find yourself later in life, and what came before it, I don't think really, unless you really fuck up and get addicted to opiates. That's the only thing I say to my kids. Just promise me you won't touch opiates. That's all I ask. Just don't fuck with those.
Well, just watch Dope Sick with them. I mean, those scenes, there's a scene in Dope Sick. It's not a spoiler. It's just something that unfortunately happened. But it's always those woods parties that I never went to. The high school woods parties. I even know the woods where they were. I was such a scared kid. Like, my mom is a Lithuanian immigrant, and like, she had so much like World War II fear. And I'm saying this with compassion. I'm certainly not making fun of her. And I got a lot of that. Like, I just absorbed a lot of like, don't go in the woods, stay at home where the Triscuits are, stay where the OJ is, go to bed early. Like, I lived like a little old lady.
Yeah.
But the kids that were going, there's a scene in Dope Sick where a kid takes like an 80, like I don't know if that's milligrams or grams, but it's like an 80 milligram pill of Oxycontin, and he dies. And I'm just like, I was the kid that you showed him the video of the people with no chins that did dip. I'm like, I'll never do dip. They say, hey, every once in a while someone takes ecstasy and their heart elevates and they explode. And I'm like, I'll never, or cocaine. And I'm just like, I'm a tell that kid once kind of guy.
Yeah.
I'm glad. But for real, like, you and your perspective is so valuable to me. One, not just because you're showing me that there is no rule, first of all, but also it's really beautiful and wise, I think, that so much of the richness and the value and the wisdom and the enjoyment and the really the depth of life comes through things not going right. You know what I mean? Right. And in my case, that's, that was my divorce, or it might have been times that were lean, or the starting years of comedy that are all these struggles that we look back and romanticize. But, it even applies as a stand-up. Like, I hadn't been doing a lot of sets, and then I went back and did a set, and it wasn't bad. I don't think the audience thought it was bad, but I hated it. Like, I was kind of sweaty, and I couldn't remember all the words. It had probably been a week or two, maybe 2 weeks.
Oh, that's it? All right.
But like, I don't know. I was exhausted. Leela is at the age where like she might wake up in the middle of the night, whatever it might be. So I was just like, I was spread thin. And then I didn't really review my notes, and I got to the set and I'm looking at my notes and I'm looking at the crowd and I'm smelling the cologne content of the crowd. And I'm just sort of like, I don't know if this is going to go so well for old Petey. And I get up and I was right. And my confidence wasn't like my mojo. You're a mojo guy. My mojo wasn't there.
Yep.
And it went bad. And I swear I was in the car driving home. And again, I got laughs. I'm not telling you I bombed. I'm telling you I just wasn't in the flow. And I drove home, and Val is so sweet. She'll be watching TV or something. I get home, Leela's asleep. And she'll ask me how it went because she's a really great partner. And no matter how many hundreds of times we come home from set, she'll still be like, how was it? And she wants to know.
Yeah.
Yeah, right. It's such a good thing. And I'm like, I was driving home and I was like, maybe I should fucking stop. What am I doing? Why do I put my head in this black hole? And every once in a while, sometimes it's absolute euphoria and the world is right and it's joy. And sometimes you go in and people are just hitting you with donkey dicks, like just slapping you in the eye with donkey dicks. And I was like, is it worth it? And as we were unpacking it, we came across what we say on our podcast all the time, which is, pain and obstacle is actually kind of the sign that you're doing something correctly. Look to athletics for more examples of this. This is why I love sports movies. I'm loving Winning Time. I love The Last Dance. I love when they creamed Boston, especially because I'm from Boston.
Dude, their depiction of Boston was harsh.
I know, but that felt like how I remember it, going to Durgan Park and fucking eating the squash kid. It felt like how I remembered it as a kid. But anyway, like sports and athletes and certain other professions, I'm sure, know that like that grind where you get really raw and you actually do want to give up is how you know you're sort of really close to the sweet spot.
Yeah.
And for me, those bad sets not only predict and inform the good sets, they actually make them happen. Not only did they define them, the good ones are defined by comparison to the bad ones, but like, it feels like, I want to know if you relate to this, the bad set pulls the bowstring back on the bow and is what projects the arrow of the good set into the bullseye. Does that make sense?
Every time I bomb, I say, oh, okay, next one's going to be fucking great. You get a great set after a bomb every time. You muster up everything you know about stand-up comedy gets distilled and reviewed.
Yes.
And you go on stage with, I'm going to prove something to them and to myself. And I'm not going to feel that pain again, whatever it takes.
You're not going to hurt me again. Absolutely. Yeah. And fight flight comes in. And I swear your brain chemistry probably is activated. And all these, suddenly now I do have access to all the words because I'm not going to let the crowd punch me in the face again. Yeah. So I'm at the Improv like 2 nights later, and it was the fucking best. Can you relate to this too? The best comedy is when you go and it's okay, and then you go up and it's great. Like you're the one that sort of turns. I've seen you do it many times, and it's not that I want my peers to fail at all, but if you're the chosen comedian that goes up in that prime slot and you turn the crowd, it's one of the greatest thrills. And I came home and Val says, how was the set? And I was like, Val, I don't know how many times I'm going to remember and forget and remember and forget. It's the shit that makes the angel food cake taste good. Like we just want angel food cake, but angel food cake doesn't even register as good unless there's also shit.
Right, and it also is about, I don't know what the quote was, but there was something about like the good stuff happens when you push yourself 10% past where you think you're done. And whether that means, doing that extra set, or, when you're writing, you know how it is when you're writing and you hit a wall, and you can either embrace the wall and you can watch porn or give up, or you can like fucking get laser focused and push through, and then all of a sudden you do some great writing. And, or if you're at a job and you stay late, or if you're a stand-up club and you do your set, but then you hang out for a little while. Dave Attell used to have a bit about it. He goes, all the good stuff happened right after you left. You talk to your friends the next day, and they're like, man, right after you left, the Go-Go's showed up, and they gave everybody hand jobs, even the guy with the Star Wars T-shirt.
Oh my God. Me and Emily Gordon would sing that at parties, would go, what if something awesome happens? And that's how we felt. You're going to leave and something awesome is going to happen. I sincerely don't have that problem. You know why I hang out now a little bit after shows is because the quarantine taught me that it's not the Go-Go's and hand jobs. It's literally just human heat, like your body heat, my body heat, your air, my air. It's not even what we're saying. I used to be one of those guys that I was like, I don't like small talk. Small talk's stupid. Small talk is the noises we make to make it not look weird, that we're just enjoying sharing space with one another. That's also what like bowling is. That's what baseball games are. That's what fishing is. That's what car trips are. It's just like, it's what we're doing right now, Fitz. Like, we're lucky that we're like, let's do a podcast, because unfortunately I'm still too thick to go like, why not just talk to Fitzdog? Why not call him up and talk? It just is what it is. It's just who we are. Let's do it as a podcast.
It's like your lovely wife, Val, who I spent endless hours and days sitting in Video Village with while you're on stage acting, and there's tech stop downs for 20 minutes at a time, and there's retakes. And I've got, as a writer, sometimes you have nothing to do for hours on end. And we would just sit. We didn't always talk, but you just feel each other's energy, and you're enjoying the hang. And if somebody's a quality person, you just start to know it without even thinking about it. And
Val's like that. And that's a real credit to you. I don't mean to reverse, backhand compliment Val, but I really do feel, maybe we've talked about this before, but if people don't see Val, I'm like, fucking beat it. And believe it or not, there's some people that don't. They just don't. They don't understand it. They don't get it. And the fact that you do. And get her independent from me, like understand her completely independent from me. But there are people in our business that are just like, what are the credits? They don't say that out loud, but you ever see the people that just gravitate to the most famous person in the room? It'll kill you. That shit will kill you.
It was we had they had the 50th anniversary of the Comedy Store party last week. Or 2 weeks ago? Maybe it was 2 weeks ago. And it was one of these festivals. It's like a comedy festival. Like you go to the Montreal Comedy Festival, whatever. And you're talking to somebody, and their eyes are darting behind your shoulder, and they're looking around. And I don't even pretend anymore. I just literally walk away when they do that. I go, there's someone else I'd rather talk to right now.
Fitzy, you've got this is weird to say because I'm a man, but you are just such a good example of like the right use of the masculine energy, and both genders have it, but like that decisive, fuck this, you know what I mean? Like that is such a good protective, like, I'm not gonna degrade myself by being the thing you occasionally look at. Like, what am I? I'm your phone and you're watching a movie. You're going to second screen a human being. You know who's great? This is name droppy, but it's a compliment. When I first met, or maybe the second or third time I met John Hamm, and this is when Mad Men was on, I remember being with him at UCB backstage, and he was, first of all, just the coolest. He was wearing like a hat I couldn't pull off and a leather jacket I also couldn't pull off. But what I noticed, and this is I guess the St. Louis in him, but like there are a lot of people from St. Louis that probably don't behave this way. So let's not give it to St. Louis. We'll give it to Ham. He was not doing that in the least. Like, meaning when he was talking to somebody, he 100%, like a tractor beam, was locked on to just them. And I didn't even know what to do with it, because this is before crashing. This is before I think it was probably before the Pete Holmes show. It was just me talking to a big celebrity, and he didn't give a shit. And there were other famous people walking around. There were people trying to get his attention, and he was just talking to basically, just a ham and egg comedian.
Yeah.
And he was locked on, and human dignity is something you can only get from other human beings giving it to you. Like, you can have your own sense of dignity, but if I reflect and treat you with, like, not just respect, but like, I imbue you. It's something you imbue, Fitzy. If I imbue you with dignity, you'll remember it that was 10 years ago.
Yeah.
It's fucking great.
My wife was so and that's what comes through on the screen with him also, and that's why he's such an amazing leader. Leading men have that trait.
I agree.
And I've met Tom Cruise. I spent a half hour in a room with Tom Cruise, and
Were you a Scientologist for 20 minutes afterwards? Because that is my fear. That's what I'm saying. I would have too. One elevator that gets stuck between floors, me and T. Cruz, I'm a Scientologist for at least 6 months.
I had a gay crush on him for 3 days. I was buzzing with did I tell you? And it wasn't that he was a star. It was how he made me feel. But I want to tell you my John Hamm story, because my wife was in love with John Hamm. I mean, I remember coming home one night, and she was watching Mad Men on the edge of the bed, and she wouldn't look at me when I came in. I was like, and I'd never seen the show. And I was like, what is this? She goes, I don't know. Like, she didn't see the opening credits. She just turned it on and was like fixated. And so she was obsessed with every episode. So we go to a party one night, and we don't go to a lot of big Hollywood parties, but we were at one. And I'm talking to her, and all of a sudden, John Hamm walks into the party. And her eyes go wide, and he comes over, and he walks right up to me. I've never met the guy. And he goes, Greg. And he gives me a big hug. And he's like, how the fuck are you, man? And I was like, and I go, do I know you? And he goes, John Hamm from the Improv. And I realized I knew him when he was a bartender back at the Improv from like the 1999, before he was famous, when he was a comedy nerd. He used to hang out at the Improv, and I was friends with him, but I didn't connect that John was Mad Men John.
Oh,
isn't that hilarious?
Shit.
And I gave it to the wife so hard that night. Oh, boy. Oh, did she get it? Yeah.
Val loves Brett Goldstein so hard.
Who's Brett Goldstein?
Brett Goldstein plays, what's his name? He's on Ted Lasso. He's the tough guy on Ted Lasso.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
That one time we were doing it, and I didn't, but I considered being like, oh yeah, you like that? I've never admitted that before. And there's a 90% chance she would have loved it if I was just like, I love football. Football is a great sport. I can't really get into the voice. But it was probably for fear of the impression not being good that I didn't do it. It wasn't that I didn't think she would like it.
Right. Oh, that's fantastic.
She loves him. Yeah. Tell me what happened with T. Cruz? I'm obsessed with T. Cruz. I think he's great.
I was working as a writer and producer on the Ellen DeGeneres Show the first couple seasons, and he came in as a guest. And I was going through Ellen's monologue with her, and Tom came in to say hello. And then somehow we got to talking about, remember that documentary Winged Migration, where they put cameras on birds and you watch them migrate around the world?
No.
It's the most spectacular documentary you've ever seen. You have to download it tonight.
Really? Okay.
Yeah, they somehow put little tiny cameras, and they followed. I mean, it took them years to make this documentary. So I'm explaining it to Tom Cruise, and then Ellen gets called out of the room to go do. There's some emergency comes up. She leaves, and now me and Tom Cruise are left in her dressing room. And I talk about wing migration, and then we start talking about documentaries. But when I say we, mostly me talking. He was not in any way asserting himself as the alpha male. He was locked in on me, and I felt like people describe this with Bill Clinton. They say when you talk to Bill Clinton, you just feel
you're the only person in the world.
Yeah.
Will Smith, second time up, this time positive. James Corden told me when he did my podcast that Tom Cruise and Will Smith and all of those that level celebrity, there's not a lot of them. When you're talking to them, they Bill Clinton you. Everything vanishes, and you'd think that the rest of us schmucks would figure it out that is actually, if you want access to all these people that you wish you knew in the room, instead of darting around, just lock on to the person you're talking to. Word will get around that you're a genuine and interesting and good person, instead of being this fucking dumbass that's giving everybody a nickel when you could give one person $1,000 and be a legend.
There you go. Be
a legend.
You know who gave us $1,000? We did a show up in Malibu at this little playhouse for a gentleman named Chris Martin from Coldplay. And
this is a very name. I've done your show many times. We've never name dropped like this.
No, this is good.
This is great. This is
going to be
fun.
the highest rated. This is the highest rated one we've done.
Well, then let me say right now, How We Roll, CBS, 9:30 Thursdays. Please watch. Please watch now. Don't wait for it to bank. Watch it now, please. Okay, keep going. Chris Martin. And now back to the sexy Chris Martin.
He has that. Yeah. He has the John Hamm, Tom Cruise thing.
And you know how we know? Because he passed the Fitzdog standard. When he came in the room, hi, it's me, Chris Martin. He goes right up to Val. Or not necessarily Val. That sounds like he was interested in Val. He was just talking to Val in the same way that you would talk to somebody on the show, which is very confusing to specialness addicts like you and me. Like we become comedians because we want to sparkle, and here comes Chris Martin, and now it's time to cash in. I'm the guy, and this is the thing, and we're here to do the show. And he goes over to Val, which is the classiest fucking thing you can do. And also, he knows, don't go to the hardware store for milk. Don't go up to a comedian if you want to have like a nice mirrored, interesting, in-depth conversation. They're just thinking about themselves, most likely.
Right.
So he went right to Val. Yeah, that was a great show. Do you remember? This is my story about that show. There was a piano on stage, and I was closing my set. And I said, thank you very much. And Chris Martin was sort of emceeing, but he was also sitting in the front row. And everybody, you're picturing him correctly, sort of like scattered necklaces, a couple necklaces that don't look like they belong together, couple bracelets, like loose, jangly bracelets, not too loose. And just kind of reckless hair, V-neck white T-shirt, and he's in the front, and he's dreamy, and it's one of the greatest achievements of my life that we, for all of us, that we were able to do that show with Chris Martin 2 feet away, and not just talk about how uncomfortable you were that Chris Martin was watching you.
Yeah. Did
the show, do my last joke. And then he starts getting up to come back on stage, and then I go, actually, sorry, 1 second, Chris. I see there's a piano here. I'm going to play Fix You, which is like one of Coldplay's biggest hits. I'm joking. He sits back down. Like he didn't laugh. You or I, if I was like, I'm going to do Greg's Closer. I just love Greg's Closer. I'm going to do it. You'd be like, get the fuck out of here. Chris Martin sat back down that's like Paddington level British. Yeah. That's so polite and so British that he's like, I'm going to listen to this schmuck butcher my number one hit. And I'll sit here politely. And you know what? If I had, I bet he would have enjoyed it. I bet he would have found a way. Because that's the other thing. I've heard that T. Cruz, you can say, show me the money to Tom Cruise, and he'll say it back. Yeah. Like, where do I get off? I don't have too many things that people say to me, but if they do, I'm not always in the mood to like hit the ball back. T. Cruz is yelling, show me the money to somebody at the Mall of America. I mean, that's incredible stuff.
It's generous.
It's also an owner. Sorry.
Well, I think it's a testament also to he's a big meditation guy, and it shows. Some people you can tell they meditate without them even telling you.
You mean Chris?
Yeah.
Yeah, I remember he told me something about meditation. I think it was when he did my pod, or it might have been that night. It was that night. Because me and him were talking about meditation. Thank God you meditate, you white outrage, like crazy man,
Helps
punching cab drivers. solving crimes like Batman, like street justice. Of course, I'm kidding, but he said, he was like, sometimes I'll just meditate for 5 minutes, like 6 minutes, and he goes, as sultry and smooth as a person could be, he goes, even a short swim, you still get wet. And I was like, I think I just got wet. What is happening right now? And also when we did after that night, I stayed in touch with his wonderful team, and I emailed them and I was like, would Chris come on You Made It Weird? And I didn't think it would happen, and it did. And Val and I both went. So obviously you bring Val. I'm a good husband. Bring Val. She's not only is she wonderful, but it's fun. It's like Val can still get into that beautiful space where she's open enough to remember her 20-year-old self and how excited that would be for her. Yeah. And she experiences it, which is great. She's alive. I go into professional mode and I block all that stuff out because I got a show to do. We had a lot of fun. We get there. Val and I are vegan. I'm sort of a bad vegan, which means every once in a while I slide, but like mostly vegan. He knew we were vegan, and we get there and there's food, and I'm like, when you're vegan, it's sort of uncomfortable when there's food because you don't want to turn down. Like, I go to your fucking house, you're having corned beef and cabbage. Like, in fact, if I did go to your house, maybe not with beef, but like if you were making a chicken dish and I really felt like you made it for me with love, I would eat it. Like if your wife made it and it was like, this is my nani's chicken soup recipe, I would just shut the fuck up and eat it. Sure. That's one of the allowances I'll make.
You go to my church, right?
I go to your church. In fact, I learned it when I was in church. I went on mission trips, and they said if you go into like a village I was going to Uganda, I was going to South America. They were like, you need to be ready for them to hand you like a goat face. Like I'm not being funny. It's just something you're not used to eating. Right. And goat face sounds like a joke, but really I ate armadillo off the shell. People have oysters off the shell. I'm holding an armadillo shell and gnawing meat off of it because it was given to me. Yeah. I've maintained some of that. If a little girl gives me a cookie, I don't say, are there eggs and milk in this? I just eat the cookie. So anyway, that's one of the allowances. But I was ready to feel uncomfortable. But no, Chris knew. Chris knew somehow and had his personal chef prepare not only vegan food for me and Val, but the best vegan food I've ever had in my life. And of course, it's real rock star shit. He's like, this was grown on the grounds over there. Yeah, over there we grew these turnips and he gave us honey. We still have the Chris Martin honey, jars of honey.
Really?
And he's like, yeah, keep bees over there. And I mean, like, I got to have some bees. Really keeps me calm working with the bees. And he just gave me honey, and I eat it, and I feel the magic of Coldplay pulsing through my fingers and my limbs. Yes. It's really wonderful. But I mean, those are the stories I want to tell. It's not. Notice that you and I aren't like Tom Cruise had a watch. Or Chris Martin's house had, this or that. You tell stories about human behavior. Not only is that more meaningful, but I think that's more important. It just is more important.
Well, speaking of good human behavior, your show, How We Roll, is on CBS now. And it is, I saw the first episode. Actually, I thought I was watching the first episode. I think it was actually the third. It didn't play it in order. But it's lovely. It's just a lovely.
Oh, thanks, man.
It feels good. I think it's you're being yourself. I think there's a lot of sides to Pete that we see in the episode. And,
that's great, man.
Congrats, man. Congrats.
I really appreciate it. As it goes, Mark Gross, who's a great stand-up, he wrote the pilot, he created it. We figure it out, like all the actors, me and Katie Lowe's and Shai McBride and Taj Mowry and Matt McCarthy, everybody gets to be more and more themselves. And Julie White, of course, I forgot Julie and Mason. Wonderful actors, but when you're doing a multicam, the difference between what we did with Crashing, sometimes you'd meet your scene partner 20 minutes before you shot. This, you're hanging out. It's like summer camp. Yeah. You're with these people all day, every day for weeks and weeks and weeks. So like Katie starts to feel like your pretend wife, but you start to feel comfortable with them. Like, you know, you got to smooch goodbye and stuff. And it starts feeling more normal because you've done it 100 times as opposed to, you know, again, a single cam show like Crashing is more like a movie. So there's just not as much camaraderie, and it starts to bleed in, and the writers watch and they start going like, oh, Pete is sillier than we thought, or Pete likes to, like, you know this from being in writers' rooms with me, Pete likes to sing. Like when Pete's being funny just in his life, just with his friends, he's always singing. So they would start writing in things for me to sing. And I just thought it was so fun, the most fun I've ever had working with other people. And like you said, it's like a feel-good show. It's got some edge to it for sure, but it's definitely a family show as well. I'm really proud of it. Sorry to be so earnest, but like we're really doing that push. We should hear like this week or next week if we get a second season.
Oh God! Well, that would be real nice. So you started?
Yeah, huge.
It just started airing a few weeks ago, right? We did 3 episodes. So far?
This is week 4, and week 4. So when will this air? Today's Tuesday. This will air hopefully
next Tuesday. A week from today.
I mean that could help us still. This Thursday, 2 episodes are airing, which I think is a great sign of faith from CBS, is that they're trying to see what happens if you're like, let's give 2 episodes and see if people stick around and sort of binge it, even though it's on network TV where you binge. So I'm really proud of the next 2. One of them is based on something that happened to my mother. This is true. My mom fell butt first into a laundry basket, and my mom and dad are still together, but they sleep on different floors because of snoring and just general marriage fatigue, I think. There's just like a schedule fatigue. My mom goes to bed at a different time. My dad gets up at like 5, but she fell in a laundry basket going to the bathroom. Not going to the bathroom. She was on her way to the bathroom. On her way back, she fell into a laundry basket. And she was stuck for like, I don't know, 2-3 hours before my father got up.
No.
Yeah. So, dude, I'll put it to you. My mom's, you know, she's in her 80s, and all I knew was like, I've fallen and I can't get up, like the life alert.
Right.
Like, what would you do? Like, I'm just seeing if your guess is the same thing that I did. What do you do when you're worried that your mom is getting older and sometimes falls and needs to call for help? What do you do?
We got my mom, for this exact reason, we got her an Apple Watch for Christmas this year because it has that function on it. If you fall down.
I thought I was such a genius. But of course, I felt like such a good son. I shipped my mom overnight. I got her the watch. I got her the plan and everything. And it's really funny. I thought this will solve everything. She comes to visit. She's got the watch on. I'm like, Mom, how's the watch working? And she's like, it's great. Watch, I'll show you. And she goes, Siri, text Peter. Siri, text Peter. Siri, text Peter. And I'm like, Mom, don't you have to say, hey Siri? And I'm like, if she can't remember at a casual brunch, what are the chances? Like, I really had to drill it into her. Like, it's, hey Siri. But you and I'm going to say it. We're good old boys. We're good sons. And that's what you do. You get your mom an Apple Watch, but then she's got to keep it charged. And then my dad had to take her to the Verizon store to activate the plan so it would work when she didn't have Wi-Fi, and he didn't do that for like 2 months or something. I was like, Dad, it's one thing.
Yeah.
Can you please
the
help?
most important thing. Forget about the car and everything else. She's falling into laundry baskets. Yeah.
Yes. And then, real talk, at what point does Dad get one? You're like, come on, this is the dry run for you. Come on, let's go. This is real stuff. But that is the answer.
And then my mom had heart surgery, and so and she has a pacemaker, and so they have this thing. It's incredible, where it's in the house, and it links up with her pacemaker, and it reports to the device, which reports to her doctor if there was any fluctuations that were worrisome. And she got it, and I was with her in New York, and I set it up, and then I went to visit at Christmas, and it's not plugged in. She's like, oh, well, I needed to plug in my printer. And I go,
Yeah,
but
yeah.
it's not working. Like, it's not working right now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
This is it, man. Like, you and I are lucky that we got in tech, like just having technology young enough that whatever Leela is getting me, whatever your kids are getting you, some special contact lens that, goes into the cloud or whatever it is and lets people know if we're dying. At least you and I will be familiar with the concept of charging it. You know what I mean? like, we'll know, even if it's a miracle, it requires power.
Right.
Go.
All right. Well, listen, Pete Holmes, you're a dear friend. I have so much respect for your comedy, your brain, your honesty.
Thanks, man.
And it's so great having you back on the podcast. Thanks for making the time.
Buddy, thank you. You don't thank me. I reached out to you and I was like, we're doing this push. And I was like, who's solid? I'm giving you a compliment. Who's solid? Greg Fitzsimmons is solid, and I appreciate you. And I'm not going to name names who didn't get back to old Petey, but let's just say there's trouble brewing.
Let's just say it's ironic because his father was a professional bowler.
Oh my God, I went out to Hardwick. No, let's just say maybe he needs to go down to Clearasil and get some shit to clear up his face. I'm just talking the shit that was talked to me. I tried to end on a callback. I always love talking to you, Fitzy. Thanks for having me.
All right, give my love to the family, and I'll see you soon.
I will, pal. Thank you.
God bless.